The Calico Queen Women in Gold Rush Brothels. The year is 1851. The streets of California's mining towns are lined with mud, tents, and men chasing the promise of gold. The sound of pickaxes and drunken laughter fills the air. But behind the swinging doors of dimly lit saloons lies another side of the gold rusher world, built not on gold, but on the bodies of women. They called them soiled doves, painted ladies, fallen women, but in truth, they were survivors. Some came by choice, lured by promises of fortune. Others were tricked, trafficked, or simply left with no other way to live. For every man who found gold, there were hundreds more who didn't, and into that desperation stepped women whose lives would be shaped by the hunger and loneliness of frontier men. In mining camps from San Francisco to Deadwood, brothels became a business. Women were shipped from cities like New Orleans and New York, or brought from as far as China and Latin America. They worked in cramped rooms, behind red curtains, under the constant threat of violence. A single night's refusal could mean starvation or death. To the men, they were a distraction. To the owners, they were profit. To each other, they were often the only family they had. But among the countless nameless faces, a few rose to power. They became known as the Calico Queens, women who learned to survive the system by mastering it. They opened their own brothels, hired guards, even lent money to miners and politicians. Some became wealthier than the men who once paid to control them, yet even their success carried a shadow. They could buy fine clothes and grand parlors, but never respect. Society called them queens with a sneer, reminding them they ruled over nothing but sin. Most women, though, did not become queens. Disease swept through the camps: cholera, tuberculosis, and worse. Many died before they were 20. Their graves were marked only by wooden crosses, their names lost to time. A few left behind diaries and letters, filled with longing for home, for a different life, for love that would never come. One woman wrote, "I am surrounded by gold, but I have never felt so poor." The life of a brothel girl was short, but not always silent. Some used what little power they had to help others. They took in orphaned children, paid bail for imprisoned friends, or cared for the sick when no one else would. And though history painted them as sinners, their compassion outshone the hypocrisy of many who judged them. Behind the glamour of the gold rush, the fortunes, the saloons, the roaring crowds, was a machine that fed on women's suffering. Newspapers celebrated the riches of men, but never spoke of the women who sold pieces of their souls to survive in the same towns. When the gold dried up, the men moved on, but the women stayed behind. Their beauty faded, their bodies worn from years of abuse and disease. The Calico Queens who once sparkled beneath the gaslight died alone, their wealth forgotten, their names erased. Yet even in their tragedy, they revealed a truth about the American dream: it was never fair, and it was never kind. The gold rush promised opportunity for all, but for women, it offered chains dressed in silk. Still, their stories endure. The Calico Queens and the women who worked beneath them remind us that history is not made only by heroes and outlaws, but by those who endured the unendurable. Their strength, their will to survive in a world that reduced them to objects, is what truly makes them unforgettable. When you hear tales of gold and glory, remember the women who stood in the shadows of that glittering dream. The women who paid the price for men's ambition. The ones who turned pain into survival, and in doing so, left behind a legacy that refuses to be buried. Thank you for watching. If you believe their stories deserve to be remembered, like, share, and subscribe to History's Dark Side, AI, where the forgotten voices of history finally speak.